So please welcome Daniel, the past life regressionist. Did I do it right, Daniel?
It's regenerist. You
Oh,
got it.
Daniel, here we are. I was thinking before we came on that you probably, of all my guests, know me to the core because of our past life, my past life regression, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's funny because after that, I it has really shaped my daily life. And I've had more. I've had others. I've had probably three before I had yours, and they're all different. And I could tell in my evolution of my growth and where I am at that moment with you that my past lives in that session were beyond the other ones. And I think it's about, I want you to explain that, but um, it was so much more um, like when I would say something like I was a time traveler, like where did that come from? Or the way I describe time on a piano. And I haven't even listened to it again. And I think it's cool that I just have tried to process it in my mind. And I've talked about it on podcasts. So it's been fun to have that as something to like speak of and to kind of relate to kind of what's been going on and see my growth all in one. It's so cool. So thank you for that.
I mean, I'm humbled, I'm touched, but the honest truth is, and I mean this sincerely, that has nothing to do with me. I
No,
was just
I'm
the guy who was facilitating it. That that is a testament to you. I truly believe in this process that those lives only came forward because of the work that you had done previous to the session and the
hmm,
growth that you had partaken in before the session. Because I don't think those lives would have come forward had you not taken those steps prior to the session. So,
huh,
I mean, so I'm touched, I'm humbled, but the honest truth is that it's you.
right. Yeah, so fun. And then I'm watching, going down your rabbit hole, trying to listen to other interviews and, learning that people are afraid. And I understand that because I was thinking, I wonder if Richard would do one. And I think he would. I don't, I don't want to say he wouldn't. And I don't, it is what it is. But when I started to think that people are afraid of that, it's being like vulnerable to the person you hosting or being the person leading the hypnosis and being in full like allowing and a trust really. And you have to be that to allow it to come through. So it takes a special person, I feel like, to actually be vulnerable to do something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you only get out what you put in. So, if you want to go through the process still a little more closed off, that's okay because I think you'll still receive what you allow to come
Hmm.
in. And the beauty of the process that, that we did and that I do all the time is that I am not actually in there with you on that journey. I'm more the outside observer who's kind of looking at it from a different vantage point and saying, okay, well, let's go here based off of what you're saying and let's go here. But I'm only able to do that because of what you provide to me.
Right.
And so, like, for anyone who's listening right now who's not familiar with the process, I just ask questions and I use hypnosis to put you in a space where you're able to receive the information. So you are the one who is saying to me, "Oh, I'm in a castle right now, or I'm in a log cabin, or I am in the halls of Congress, or I'm at the beach," and so on and so forth. So I can only ask questions based off of what you provide me with. So therefore, if you're seeing something or experiencing something that is uncomfortable and you don't want me to know about it, I'll never know. I mean, I may be able to see like, oh, I think that there's some discomfort coming up right now, but I'm not going to push if it's something that you don't want to bring up. So I think that's what's also cool about the process is you never have to relinquish control fully to the experience.
Right. Yeah. So let's before we get into it, I really want to bring it back to I guess when I was reading your website, like understanding like fifth grade, watching Roots, the movie, and I like seeing that scene and feeling like you'd been there, and how it progressed into this your story. Like, let's go back to that point because I think I would love for people to understand, like, why did Daniel want to be this? What do this? Like, where did this come from? What are you, 38 years old and you started this when?
I got certified when I was 30.
Okay. So see,
Yeah.
like it's amazing for a
Yeah.
30-year-old to really like see this past life stuff is so fascinating is amazing. So let's start with fifth grade. If that's where you want to start, you can start earlier. But what really kind of catapulted this you to find this purpose, your passion?
So I think what you're referring to is on my website. I have like the basic story of kind of how I found myself in past life regression. And what you're referring to specifically was when I was in the fifth grade, when I don't know how they do it in school now, but someone, used to wheel the big TV in,
Yep.
and because there was like one to a stack of classes, and we popped in the VHS tape, Betamax if you go back a few years. And when we were watching Roots, the show about slavery and the slaves from Africa coming over to America, and it took place over the course of a couple generations. There was a scene in there where a slave was getting tossed overboard, if I remember. I can't remember if they were alive or deceased at that point, but when I was watching it, I had this visceral feeling inside of, I've seen this before. Now, I was, 10 years old at the time, and this was in 1996, 97 at that point, because my birthday's in May. And Roots came, and this is like right now, I'm trying to go along the logical timeline progression where Roots came out, I believe, in 77 or 78, and I was born in 86. And it's not like we had Netflix back then, so you could just like pop in Roots if you wanted to. It was something I think the networks would have to play at one time or another. And I don't know how many times the networks replayed Roots. It's my long winded way of saying I don't know if I ever saw Roots in my living room with my parents, considering it
Mhm.
came out 8 or 9 years before I was born. So, where would I have that feeling? And years later, when I was in a regression, I saw myself in I guess what I would consider to be in a linear time sense in my most recent life. And when I was passing away, I saw on the big, still tube box that Roots was on TV. And that was the scene that was playing at the moment of my death. Now, here's the thing, I don't want to kill my credibility, but I wrote that description on my website 5 years ago. And as the 5 years have rolled on, there's a part of me that still wonders, is that something that, not that I constructed necessarily when I was in that regression, but just something to make sense of what
Mm.
had come before? And the truth is, I don't think it really matters because at the end of the day, is that really going to change things? No. I think what matters is the lie or the lessons that I took away from that particular life, not what I was watching on TV. But here's another possibility. Maybe what I was seeing on the screen was something I had actually partaken in, whether that be the person being thrown overboard, the person doing the throwing overboard, the person in the lookout watching it, the body hit the water, or someone else on the deck, whether that be a slave trader or a slave, someone working the ship, a crew member. I don't know for sure. But what I do strongly believe is that seeing that just kind of elicited a remembrance in me of something that I was present for. And then again, it could be exactly what it was, which was I was actually watching Roots at the moment of my death. And it was
Right.
what it was. And it's this sequence of a lot of mind chatter that just kind of leads me to this place of, can I just accept what is? And at what point is it okay to just say, it just is. Whatever it is, it's fine. And I don't know
Right.
the answer to that.
Right. Well, it's having done these a few times, and I know you do them like every 2 or 3 months, right? These.
You mean for myself?
Yes.
I used to. I
Okay.
stopped doing that about a year or so ago because I just hit this point where, like, you know what? Let's let's stay here for now because at that point, I don't know, I had done 35 or 40 sessions
Oh,
for
wow.
my yeah. So it's like, okay, let's chill for a bit and just
Jeez.
be present now.
Right. But you know, when you talk about believing or knowing, um, you know, you're like, it could be this or it couldn't be this, but it's whatever my perspective or whatever I took it as at the moment. But when you're in a session like that, it's kind of like, it's just for me, the, this one especially, I have had so much, I do so much automatic writing and that requires so much trust and knowing and believing that you just trust and you just go. Like whenever you ask me a question, I just said it. Like whatever came to my mind, I'm just going to say it. So, yeah, and it is what it is. You know, like who's to I could have I mean it could have been a whole made up thing. I don't know, you know?
It could have been, and I am open to that possibility. However, still, for there are feelings I get often in a session where I'm like, I think this may be forced a little bit.
Mhm.
So let's still inquire. We'll ask questions, and I don't treat anything as if it's an absolute. It's always what's the lesson here. But for years, I had no bells going off. It's just, yeah, okay, cool. It's just what
Huh.
it is. Yeah, musical notes, awesome, cool.
Huh. Okay. So let's go into you have an autoimmune disease and you're searching for healing. And go ahead.
So, yeah, part of what brought me to past life regression in the first place. Let's go back a little further to just childhood. I'm always someone who always wondered why. That was my favorite question to ask. I'm sure it pissed my parents off. I know it definitely pissed off my teachers, and they didn't like it in Sunday school. The 1 year I was there. But I also am very logical. So I, like everyone else in the world, is a product of the system. And when I would have these thoughts about something like reincarnation when I was a kid or aliens, since there wasn't proof of it, it was just an idea, and I wouldn't really let the concept evolve beyond a curiosity. It didn't ever rise to the level of exploration. Because why would I explore something that's not real? You know, that's I put that in quotes.
Right.
And then in my early 20s, I came down with an autoimmune disorder. And of course, me being a product of the system and my rigid belief in Western medicine, I put all of my faith in Western medicine. And I was coming up short. You know, doctors would say, yeah, we're going to cure you. I got the answer for you, kid. Okay. And I get really excited. And then, plop, nothing. Next doctor, we're going to cure you, kid. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Plop. So after a few years, I finally said to myself, you know what? I got to explore alternative treatments. And even saying that, just it felt icky on the tip of my tongue. Like, oh, you mean I want to just an herbalist? They're gonna, what a kook. They're gonna mix some concoctions or something of herbs, and that's gonna cure me, while also not taking into consideration that a lot of pharmaceuticals are just compounds. But so I think my preconceived biases got in the way as well. But I was forced to make the choice to try something new by circumstance. And I still wasn't, I was finding relief in some respects. But what ultimately happened for me is I had, I had, I would say I had a bit of an overinflated sense of self and a bit of an overinflated ego, which I've been working on over the years. But at that time, we're in my mid to late 20s at this point, where I thought to myself, I can cure this. I can see what the researchers haven't found. I'll be able to do it. So what am I going to do? Let's look at genetic lineage because maybe I'll find something in migratory patterns that they weren't able to spot. So, let me go do a DNA test. So I went and had that done. Of course, my DNA test came back. I was about 99% Eastern European Jew. Well, that one fell flat.
Mhm.
But what was really interesting is at that time, past life regression ended up falling into my lap. It just still randomly bypassing. It wasn't something I was seeking out, but it just fell in my lap. And I thought about it for a few months because the people who I heard about it from, I respected them. And when they shared their experience, it seemed that they were convinced that it was real. And still looking at it, I said, why would they lie? What would they have to gain in this situation? Especially because they weren't selling me anything.
Right.
It was just sharing their experience. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, this is really cool. And it kind of goes in line with exploring a different kind of lineage. So I looked into it and I saw about the potential healing benefits of it. And I think I was also on this quest to understand myself at a deeper level at the time. So I'm like, okay, well, let's understand myself at a deeper level, potentially through past lives. So the true sequence of events is that I did one of those self regressions a
Hmm.
little while after, and the experience felt very real to me. And I was just like, wow, that was something.
Like you get on YouTube and that kind of thing.
Exactly. It was a,
Okay.
a Brian Weiss regression, I
Oh,
think,
okay.
like the standard one. And it felt so real to me. And that was that first step of just, okay, that was something. I know I have a vivid and wild imagination, but that went beyond imagination. When I'm imagining, I don't feel things in that visceral of a way.
Hmm.
So I spent the next couple months doing a couple more of those and still getting used to the idea of even going into a deeper exploration. And then I had my very first regression and it changed my life. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I went in there with an expectation that I was going to be healed because of what I was reading in these miraculous
Right.
recovery stories. I'm like, this is going to happen. I have the belief because they're always talking about the belief. I believe that this is going to happen. I'm going to walk out of there cured. I'm going to go run a marathon a week later. Not even taking into consideration you need to train for something like that. But that was kind of what was going on in my head. But that's not what happened for me. The experience that I had was just so profound that it altered my belief system. And I had a visceral reaction to the self recorded or guided meditation
Hmm.
regression. And the experience I had in the actual one on one was on a different level. So it was almost undeniable to me.
Will you
That's something.
explain that? When you say that, it was so profound. Like what does that mean?
Meaning that I walked away feeling lighter. And I'm a believer in the placebo effect, but only
Hmm.
to a certain extent. For me to feel that much lighter within the span of just a couple hours, it's one of those things where this is something else. And it's something that's stuck. That's the other thing. If it had just gone away overnight, then okay, I was just telling myself, but it stuck and I started to feel lighter. And that in and of itself was profound, but the biggest shift for me happened as a result of my belief system transforming. And like I said, I'm someone who's logical, very stuck in my ways and rigid. But because of that experience, I walked out a firm believer in past lives. And just like we were talking about earlier, I think you distinguish the difference between believing and knowing. By knowing being something you can factually prove, while believing is a belief. You can't necessarily prove it, but it
Right.
feels real enough that it shapes your belief system. So I walked away a believer in past lives. And then by default, I was a believer in future lives in a linear sense. So I walked away still like literally repeating this in my mind Next time or I'm sorry, these are the cards that I've been dealt in this life. Next time it could be better, it could be worse. So how am I going to play these cards this time? Am I
Hmm.
going to be a victim of my circumstance, or am I just going to accept what it is? Because prior to that session, when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who was sick. After that session, I saw someone who had to deal with some health issues, but I didn't see this sick person looking back at me.
Oh, I love
So
that.
it was a shift in perspective, and that in and of itself was priceless. And the
Right.
truth is
Freeing, right?
very
Freeing.
freeing. And I think that, look, I have seen amazing things happen through this process with clients that I've worked with. Physical things being healed, whether that's through placebo or something in the quantum, whatever it is, it works. But I don't think that would have been right for me. As I look back on that experience over a decade ago, it would have been too simple. And I think the journey is where the growing comes. So if I
Hmm.
had just been healed, well, great. What would I do with that? I'd probably be running around the world and not looking internally. And I think
Right.
that's what the process also, I don't want to say forced me to do, but it gave me the opportunity to continue looking inward. It's been a very slow and steady process over the last decade, but nonetheless, something shifted for me that day.
Hmm.
And I think that, yeah, it would have been great if I was healed, but I think it would have been too simple.
Are you
So
healed now?
I'm better.
Oh, good.
So
But what did
it's,
you,
yeah.
but did you have you in their 80 plus past life regressions figured out why you have this disorder? Like, what have you done in your past lives that, you know, how people have migraines and it's like, oh, they got shot in the head or, what is
Yeah.
that? Have you figured that out?
Well, so I'm not quite at 80 yet for my
Oh,
personal ones, but
okay.
no, I mean I haven't figured that out. I think it's I think it's probably more current life related.
Hmm.
And the the hard truth that I need to look at is what am I not looking at? What am I still not acknowledging? Because like I was saying before about I have this firm belief in Western medicine. And it's not like I completely discount Western medicine now. I don't. I still think that there is a balance between functional medicine and holistic and natural and also Western. I think Western can be great for interventional purposes.
Hmm.
So, with that, I also believe that there are biological components and emotional components. I think that, well, when these issues came up for me initially, I was going through the most stressful time of my life. So I think that I may have had just some genetic or biological marker or something like that, that this emotional stressor
Hmm.
activated and they just worked in tandem. But maybe it's also something that hasn't been fully discovered yet in a biological sense or a medical sense. And, you know, maybe that's completely what it is and it has nothing to do with emotions. But I don't think the exploration of past lives is really the answer for me in that one because I also think it probably would have come up by this point. And look, it's hard for me to say this as a past life regressionist and admit that the process has its limitations. Either
Hmm.
that or I'm just an awful practitioner. And so, but I also have to ask myself, is there a way that I'm still benefiting from keeping this thing around? And I don't think that necessarily means that I'm coming in this mindset of, oh, it's all my fault, but I have to look in the gray area as opposed to the black and white and still not be a victim of my circumstances, but also say, what's the worst that can happen if I look at some of these things and continue
Right.
to look deeper?
Right.
And I hope to, come to that day where it's no longer something I have to deal with, but it is a reality for me right now. it is still a part of my life. And it's not like I'm in a wheelchair or anything like that, but it's still pain. And it is what it is. But I also think that when you go through something, I think it makes you a more effective practitioner because I think you're able to, I don't even know if sympathy and empathy are necessarily the component that that is most important here or even tangible, but there's an understanding that comes into play.
Yeah, I
And
get that.
right, and just as a practitioner, if I encounter someone who has gone something or gone through something that I haven't experienced, it doesn't mean that I'm not able to assist in their journey. But I think that there
Right.
is something different that happens when you can actually relate in a different way.
Right. For
So,
sure. So let's go into so you studied Dolores Cannon's QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique.
mhm.
There's other types that you've studied, BQH,
BQH, yeah, from
eh,
Beyond Quantum Healing.
beyond quantum healing, and then there's another one that I heard you talking about, life lives between lives, or
I am not certified in
I
that
know you're
modality.
not,
That's yeah,
but
one that
that's
I've
something
gone through
else.
though. Yeah,
Right. But can you explain the three and how different the difference is in them?
sure. So I'll go to the lives between lives one that I've partaken in. What that process has been like is you go through a past life regression, and the next step is where you're kind of going into that in between space or that review process after that given life. And you're kind of going through whatever it may be. I think it shows up in different ways for different people. For me, it felt like it was like a very Greek setting or something like that. And
Greek?
Greek, yeah, like
Oh,
ancient
okay.
Greek. Of
Okay.
course, it's like, why else would I equate it as anything other than philosophers sitting up there on pedestals?
Right.
And it was kind of, it was going over the decisions that were made in that life and the effect that they had on that life and the effect moving forward. So it was like this review process, but at no point did it ever feel like judgment. It was, this is what it was. This is what you could have done better. This is where you thrived. So there was something very liberating about that feeling of not being judged, and it's just looking at it through this lens of growth. I think that's the best way that I can put it.
Yeah, I can see that.
So QHHT, which was developed by Dolores Cannon, the process there is first going through an actual regression. And then we go to a part where it's exploring the subconscious or superconscious, or what she called the SC. And at that point, what we do is we bring forward or bring in that part of yourself that actually comes and speaks through you during the session. So everything is still coming through your voice. You're still aware of what's going on, but it's that part of you still that sees things from a different vantage point, a different perspective, and it has a more complete view of who you are in this life and most likely what you've experienced in in what we would consider to be past lives or future lives. So it's just looking at it through a bigger picture lens. And at that point, we can ask questions such as, well, why did Ashley see this during the session? Why was it important for these lives to come up today? Or it could be questions that you come in with, something as complex as what is the purpose of life? Or something as simple as why did your third grade teacher treat you like garbage? Or why is your favorite color? I mean, mine's blue. So it would be like, well, why is Daniel's favorite color blue?
Mhm.
Anything and everything. And the worst answer you can get is no, or now's not the time. But still, everything is coming through you. So at no point do you ever need to take someone else's word for it. The only person you really need to take into consideration at that point is you. And are those things coming through seamlessly, or is it an answer that you're trying to force? And I believe that 98% of the time, it's just coming through seamlessly. Because I think there's always that 2% of the time, or the guy just throwing that number out, or even 7%, whatever it may be, that someone wants to believe something so strongly that they will interfere with the process because it will be that confirmation bias that they were looking for, and they would
Hmm.
be able to say, "Oh, well, it came up during my past life regression with the SC, so it must be true." And QHHT follows a very structured process. We'll put it that way, where you have to follow all of these steps for it to be a QHHT session. And I think that there is a lot of value in it. Now, BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, is a process that allows the practitioner to incorporate whatever they feel is best in a session. Because while QHHT is still a fantastic process and a great process, I've had personal success from it, being the regressed. I have had tremendous success as someone who's a practitioner, but I don't believe it's a one size fits all. So that is the great thing about BQH, is that sometimes you need to throw something else in, something, or sometimes you need to color outside the lines and bring something that may not be a part of the process. So I utilize BQH during virtual sessions because QHHT can only be done in person. And I will do QHHT and stick to it if someone asks specifically for that in person, say, like, I want a QHHT session. So it's like, okay, then we're doing QHHT. So the big difference I would say would be between the QHHT and the life between lives, because BQH technically, I believe, would allow you to incorporate life between lives if you felt that it was
Oh, right.
appropriate. Now, it has happened in sessions where it has just come up, so I will roll with it at that point. But since I am not certified in that, I'm not gonna pitch it to anyone and say, okay, yeah, let's do it. It's and that's the other thing with QHHT. If something like that were to come up, yes, you can just roll with it.
Did the lives between lives and the BQH spawn off of QHHT from Dolores?
BQH did.
Okay.
Life Between Lives, I'm not 100%, but I believe it was Dr. Michael Newton that developed
Okay.
that one.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And I think it really started coming into the fold around the same time as QHHT and
Okay.
also uh, Brian Weiss's method.
Right.
So,
Okay. Okay. So going to like the way I wanted to kind of explain, when we got on ours, it was, 3 or 4 hours that you spend. And, at the beginning, you go through 0 to 5. I was telling somebody about it. And I was like, are you sure, Daniel, you really want to hear my life? Like, like I'm not used to like share and like, my whole life from 0 to 56. So, but you're like,
wait,
yeah, this is
you're
part of,
56?
yes, I'm 56.
You had me fooled.
I did.
Well, aesthetically speaking, I saw your natal chart for astrology, so
Oh,
it's a
right.
bad joke. I try too hard sometimes. But no, if
Okay, so
anyone's listening, she doesn't look 56.
thank you. Um, so 0 to 5, then but there's a purpose in that because you're explain how the process goes. So we get on, we're talking, you're like, okay, let's go.
So the process there is I need to understand your life now. Like as Ashley, I need to understand who you are because of patterns. Because if patterns start to emerge during your regression portion and I don't know about the patterns in this life, then I won't know to say, okay, well, let's explore this further because it could be lost on me. And it's sometimes it is the smallest detail that could be the biggest component to all of it. I mean, a good example I can give you is I mean, I've had this happen, God, probably at least a couple dozen times. Or on the questionnaire for the higher self portion and the subconscious, I divided into sections just kind of as prompts for the kinds of questions that you would want to ask. And there is a section on there for physical, like physical injuries or ailments, mental health issues. And
Hmm.
oftentimes people leave that one empty, which is totally fine. Now, if I were just looking off of the questionnaire, it wouldn't be something we'd explore because, well, you don't want to explore it. But going through the life story, I may come to learn that you had an accident 20 years ago and that it is still affecting you in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not have been aware that that's something that can be addressed through this process. So you just say, okay, yeah, sure, I was in a car accident 15 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm not going to bring it up during a past life regression,
Right.
but that may be the key to everything. Because what's also important is what was going on in your life at that time. Look, an accident may just be an accident. It may just be this random event that happens with absolutely no meaning to it. We live in a universe with no meaning. Everything is completely random. Or it could be something that is trying to get your attention, get you to look at something, and just look at yourself in a different way. But patterns are patterns because there's something that reoccur. So just because this accident happened 15 or 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, doesn't mean that the pattern has been resolved yet. It may just not be something you're fully aware of. So at that point, if I start asking questions, well, what was going on in your life at the time? Well, this, and that. And it's like, well, were you in the hospital? Yeah. What were you thinking about when you were laying in the hospital bed? Well, I saw I was making some not so good choices at the time. Okay, well, what were those choices? And so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And then we see a parallel there in a past life. And it's like, oh, this was important. So we go through the life story because sometimes you even saying you choked on a lollipop could be the key to everything. As ridiculous as that sounds, it could be the key to everything. So when you said, do you really want to hear this, Daniel? Like, damn
Right.
right I do.
Yeah, and patience too, because I'm so used to being the person that asks questions. It made me realize like I'm not used to being the talker. The so that was an interesting experience for me. But okay, so when I'm in my past, when I'm laying on this couch right here with you, and we start, and you explain, like looking at a bird, you're trying to get to that place in your mind so people understand where they're going to in their mind's eye, right? Like you try
Mm-hmm.
to that's what that process is for,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all visualization. I mean,
right?
that's all the process really is. And I'd say at the core of it, what we're really doing is just getting your this is for everyone. I'm not just saying you in particular. It's getting the garbage thoughts out of the way,
Mhm.
basically everyday life. You know, you
Right.
being worried about the laundry or taking the garbage out or your bills or whatever it may be. It's getting all of that out of the way because you have access to all of this information. It's just a matter of actually sitting with it for a few minutes and letting the information come forward. So it's just visualization at that point. And like that's
Right.
how you connect with that deeper part of yourself and
Hmm.
allow the experience to come forward because most of the time it does come through visuals, but sometimes people have the experience through either like sounds or feelings or just even a knowing. For me
Hmm.
personally, I see mine through flighting visuals where I may see an image kind of pop up in my mind in front of me and I have this awareness of what is happening there. So I'm not necessarily viewing it in a moving picture
Okay.
type of way. Sometimes I do, but most of the time it's just that. So it's kind of priming you to visualize.
Right. So okay, so in mine, um, you asked about karma. And I've been listening to you talk about that. So I understand, we chose karma. This is part of why we chose a human experience. We need to clear karma. It's like stepping, what, like expansion into this, like why we're growing, right? That we're going to
Mhm.
learn all these things. We come here to learn lessons. But and mine, explain what you said because I was in my regression and you asked me and I said, I'm not here for karma. I don't know why that came out. And then you explained afterwards that what you try to get from people before they go under, what their karma, like explain that.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily trying to get karma from them. It's still about understanding those patterns and where
Okay.
the the pattern may lie in the karma. So my experience is that I mean I think a lot of people view karma as eye for an eye, such as like I shoot you in one life, you shoot me in another life.
Right.
And it's that cycle there. Whereas what I often see is, I mean, if we're going to make it black and white and boil it down to perpetrator victim roles, and oftentimes it's the same perpetrator and the same victim. And it's getting to this because it's this pattern of being the victim. But at what point do you stop being the victim? And is
Right.
it as simple as walking away, or is it standing up for yourself? Is it pushing back? I mean, I would always advocate, hey, let's find the peaceful solution to this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of that pattern phase. And what are you holding on to and what's been carried over? But yours is something that gets tricky because I think that there are always exceptions to the rule. And I think in this circumstance, I would consider you to be the exception of the rule. Now, getting to know you over that couple hour period before we did the regression and in the regression and post regression when we were talking, I have no reason to believe that you were making any of this up. I have like I don't. It's not something I'm really putting much thought into because I just didn't see the need for it. I mean, in terms of why would you make this up? Whereas for other people, I could see how. Now, if I remember correctly, it was when your subconscious came in and said that yeah, you weren't here for like there is no karma being created,
Mm-hmm.
right? And therefore, it's nothing to really be resolved in a future life. So I think most people are probably in the camp of you're constantly creating karma. There's constantly things to be resolved. But I think you're that exception to the rule where you're here for another purpose.
Hmm.
And one of, I don't remember if I told you this or not. I may have, but my gears were grinding when we were talking initially, like during your life overview part, because usually I'm pretty good at tuning into an issue and getting this feeling of, okay, this is what we need to work on. This is what's
Oh, okay.
going to be addressed. And I was just coming up empty. Like
Okay.
I don't even know what I'm here to do right now. I have no
Huh.
idea what this is going to be. So when you brought that up towards the end of the session or when your subconscious did, okay, that kind of tracks. Now, I would also caution people who are hearing this right now to put yourself in that camp because even for you, Ashley, I would say, yeah, I have no reason to believe that you're not going to create karma or
Mm-hmm.
be creating, but I would still treat it as if you are because what if? What if for
Right.
some reason it was a sneeze or something and we both misheard it or something like that. And then you go around just like robbing liquor stores and doing all these things because you think, oh, well, I'm not creating karma. Or you're just a jerk. I'm not creating karma. I don't need to be nice to people. So I think an exception to the rule. But then again, maybe karma is something we've constructed as humans or a
Mm-hmm.
subset of the population in order to make sense of something where we don't need to make sense out of something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that there's always going to be an exception to the rule. So you saying that is not something I come across that frequently.
Hmm. When you're talking too, and I don't mean to be talking about me the whole time, but I
Oh, that's
guess
okay.
um, when you were saying something about like, I believe you and about the ego and how you were like trying to understand who I was in this lifetime and what your takeaways were with my soul or what my soul was speaking to you.
Mhm. So with the karma component, I think also like, yeah, this goes hand in hand. I think what you're referring to is I'm not judging at the beginning. I'm assessing. And I am simultaneously looking at what I believe to be the best parts and the worst parts. Yeah, all people are imperfect. No one
Right.
is perfect. Everyone has their bad things, everyone has their good things. People are people. Even the people we view as monsters are very complex. Even the people we view as saints are very complex. I don't think anyone is an absolute.
Right.
So, a lot of what I'm also still assessing is what are you not saying? And I'm often asking myself the question, this thing that you're saying right now, is it something you need? Is it something you want? Or is it something that just is? And when we were talking about the trajectory of your life and where you find yourself now, I saw something that was very rare in this space. And when I say this space, I mean in this spiritual community or in this new age space. I saw someone that I don't believe was motivated by ego.
Okay.
And
Right.
everything you were saying felt like it was coming from a place of, look, I don't believe that anyone is truly altruistic, but
Right.
you came pretty damn close. Where
Wow.
it it actually felt like you wanted to do this for the betterment of humanity. And admittedly, I am someone who I like to believe that I'm doing this for the right reasons. But when someone says to me, "Oh, I grew so much as a result of your session, and you're such an amazing practitioner," uh, just any wonderful thing you can think about. There's a part of me that is very uncomfortable hearing that, and then there's another part of me that's very ecstatic because there is still a part of me that is driven by ego. If I'm being honest,
Right.
I do my best to be aware of, am I doing this from a place of ego, or am I doing this from a place of sincerity? Now, with the altruism component, altruism being someone doing the sake or doing the right thing just for the sake of doing the right thing and not looking for anything in return. The reason I do not believe that anyone is truly altruistic is because I believe that even at a soul level, we know that we're racking up good points for the good things that we do. So there
Hmm.
is something we are gaining from the experience of opening up a door for someone or giving a homeless person a sandwich. Whatever it may be, I even if we're not consciously saying, well, I'm going to feel better about myself or I'm a good person if I do this. I think that extra layer adds or eliminates that element of altruism.
Right.
So that's why when the karma thing came up, like something about this is tracking, even though this is something that goes against my perceived view of the world and of our existence. Me looking at every person and saying, I think this is about karma here.
Hmm.
The exception to the rule will always be that outlier. And I don't believe that you're altruistic still at that soul level necessarily. But
Hmm.
Ashley, the person I was talking to, unless you're a complete sociopath, like you could have had me fooled, but it wasn't, look how wonderful I am. It was, hey, I like I like helping people. I like speaking to children. I want to help people. I want to help them become more evolved. I want to help them grow. But there was just such sincerity in the way that you said it. And without the look at me, look at me. Again, I'm a good mirror for that. Look at the way I do my hair.
But
But
it's just so when after that happened, because I don't, it's like I started, it's such a great experience to have whatever goes on in this session for anyone. What it did for me when that happened, it made me walk my life differently because not differently, but see that it is true. Like I don't care. I want everyone to grow. I want to do this, but I don't do this podcast for $1, you know? Like I
mhm,
just want to, I pay to do the podcast. So it's like I just do this for it fills my soul to the nth degree. Like when I can't explain what it does for me. And when someone says, "Oh, I listened to your podcast. I've been listening to it for 5 years." I'm like, "You have?" Like, but it's just like I just know. But when you said that, it was such a confirmation to me to realize, and that I don't look at it that way. Period. Like that doesn't even I can't even put an ounce of that into me.
mhm.
Yes, probably at the soul level. Yes, I agree. that there's something in there that makes me feel good when someone reaches out to me and says, that changed my life or something. But yeah, because we're human. But if I was to say to you, now that I understand that from that perspective, it's like it was such a good just a knowing that, gosh, that is who I am. Like, wow, you just learn so much about you. I learned so much about myself that I, do on a daily basis anyway. But to have that, your perspective, it was really a cool experience and a confirmation.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that, and I'm happy that I could hold that mirror up for you. But I mean, here's the thing: at the same time, when we talk about me getting to know your life story and then doing the regression, there is something that is very profound for me personally, is that I get to know people on a level that most people never get to know them
Right.
at. Because not only
Exactly.
do I get to sit and hear your life story in one sitting, but I also get to lead you through this experience of you experiencing other lives.
Right.
And so that even if someone has a therapist, I think the therapist is going to be hard pressed to get to know them at that level as well. They may know them in a more thorough level in this incarnation than I would, but there's
Right.
something that's so cool about that.
Right.
And I think, but that's the holistic component to all of this. In that feeling of tapping in, also, like when I said at the beginning about my gears grinding, I'm like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. I have no idea. This is like what? But it's that feeling that I'm also getting through that analysis of why isn't she seeing this? Why isn't she seeing how rare it is? The and like I know this is like there's a reason why I'm coming out this way right now. It's because it isn't like just like let's praise Ashley. I'm saying this stuff because I
Yeah.
actually believe it, but because in the time that I got to know you, and that's all I can speak from is my own personal experience in that one day. And then I do get to know a lot of people. Am I wrong? Yeah, sure. I've been wrong about people before, and I will continue to be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong about you though.
Oh,
But
thank you.
I think I'm just really wanting to stress this for your listeners because I don't think you're ever going to be the one-stop shop. I think that the people who listen to your podcast and stick with you for years on end and will continue, I think they are also seeking outside of you.
Right.
And I think that you're the metric that, and I don't want to say that they can measure you up against other people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more so, I guess what I'm asking everyone to do is associate the feeling, whatever they feel when they're listening to you, associate that feeling when you're seeking outside of this space. And judging on the feeling, because you can't always judge a person by the things that they're saying or the way that they're presenting. I think
Right.
a lot of it is you have to trust your feeling.
Right.
And at my core, I I have learned about responsibility through the process of past life regression and responsibility that I skipped over in other lives, responsibility that I neglected, being in
Mm.
positions of power or responsibility in doing what would probably be perceived to be as the wrong thing with that power and being in that position. Whereas now, being Daniel, the past life regressionist, the handle just happened to be available when I got it. The past life regressionist, everyone go check it out on Instagram or my show, The Past Life Regressionist on New Reality TV. But what I've learned personally is about responsibility through the process of my own past life regressions. And coming on your platform right now, there are conscious choices that I am making as a result of what I have learned through the process of past life regression and that neglect of responsibility in other lives. Now, again, this is my perception. I could be viewing this all wrong, but I could come in here being like, I get to come on Ashley's podcast and I get to promote my business to the world. I'm going to make sure that I talk about all of the people that have been healed through the process. I'm going to talk about all the cool, spiritual, sexy things that have come up, the stuff that'll earn me street cred because I'm the guy who brought them to Atlantis or Lemuria or ancient
Hmm.
Egypt, and have this famous person, that famous person, and so on and so forth. But then there's that part of me that says that's not the responsible thing to do. This is a real process where you can really learn something about yourself through this exploration. And I just don't see much of that out there. Now, there are a lot of people, a lot of practitioners still who are spreading that message, but the majority of what I see, and not just in past life regression, this goes to all healing modalities. This is being
Hmm.
very driven by the ego.
Right.
But when I come across someone like you, especially in that session where I see to the core of someone, this is rare. I mean, you're not the only one I've worked with who's in a position like yours, who I do believe is coming from the right place.
Hmm.
But on the flip side, that's not what I'm always seeing. But that's okay because everyone is on their journey. And maybe I
Right.
can be the one to say, hey, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your business, but maybe stop being such a, and not saying it in this way, but chill.
Right.
Just why you doing this? And I think it's those things that are important to really gauge when,
Right.
because I'm blowing an opportunity here potentially by also saying, well, let me tell you, I went in to be healed, but I wasn't healed.
Right.
I'm not selling it. And so and I'm saying this too because that's the mirror I got with you, everyone, that's the mirror I got with Ashley.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
someone who's not selling. It's just I want to help.
Right.
I want to help. I want to help. I want to raise my daughters in the best way that I possibly can. I want them to be good members of society.
Hmm.
And I want to help people.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
oh,
Gosh.
so one last thing.
Yes.
So that's why I'm like, okay, she's not creating karma. Yeah, I can dig that.
Okay, well, we don't have much time left, but I kind of want to go a little bit over because I want you to explain, when I did, I understood after our session, why I believe this is so important is what it's done in the last 3 weeks for me. I've understood time in a million ways better when I had that experience with all the piano keys. I've talked about it on every episode, by the way, since we did our session, because it's made an impact and it made me go, oh my gosh, I totally get the piano keys was for me to understand like all I need to do is go to that key, see that life, see that blue big ball that I was going to get that energy and go to that other piano key and use that energy that I put in my soul from that piano key to go to that life. So it's, and then to go to another piano key and see my life as this old man that, it's just like, oh, that's why I love inspiring people. I felt like I had written books and there was a Wayne Dyer feeling like, okay, that's why I'm drawn to him. Like, am I in his soul family? Like, but so all these things, Daniel, that have been since our time together has made such an impact in every moment of my life. And that is why it's like I could shout it to the sky. Like, that's why it's like I could sell ice to Eskimos because it's like when I believe in something and I see what it's done to my life and how it affects me in every part of my day since I saw you since I had that experience, it's like, oh, I want everyone to have that. It's those, it's that realization too. And I've been saying this a lot lately is that we are so much more than what we've been dumbed down to be,
Hmm.
and it's like, people, let's wake up, realize our power, realize what we can do in this life, because this is where we are focused right now and where we can do all the stuff that we've had in all these lives to really better this moment right now. And this is all we have is now. So explain the time and how you finally realize future, you could figure out the future life, the present, the now, and the past, because it's all right now. And then we'll end it because we're going to look. Keep going.
So, first thing, first huge takeaway. There are so many things that you could have said from that session, but what you chose to say is how you've made a difference and grown in this life. And that is where it's all you. that are, those are that's why I also love this process, because it really is about information gathering. And you as the individual have the choice what you are going to take away from the session. And that is what you chose to take away. I'm not here to say what's right or wrong, but I think that that's the takeaway.
Right. I
It's
love
that
it.
perception and how do I live a more fulfilling life now by taking the best parts and looking at the not so great parts of the other ones to live the most fulfilling life. So that's what I think is so fantastic. Now, with the piano keys, we'll stick with the white keys for now. One, I'm going to throw out numbers right now because I want to just everyone to visualize this. So on your piano keys, you have 7 white keys, which are going to make up. Oh, well, just the one, with each octave. So we'll work within the scope of an octave right now. So you have your A, your B, your C, your D, your E, your F, and G. Okay, we got our 7 there. Now, I want to label A as 1. Let's do B as 2. We'll do C as 5. We'll do D as 4. And we'll do E as 3, F as 7, and G as 6. I think I got it all right there. So I bring that up because when we view the A through G in a linear sense, it looks like we're moving from life to life. And that is maybe the pattern of location. Whereas when I assign the numerological value or numerical to each one of those keys, let's look at those numbers as years. Now, in a linear time sense, we were jumping around there. So we went from, I think it was like 1 to 2 to 5 and so on and so forth. So that first life may be the year 100. Second life may be the year 500 or 200. Next one, 500. And then the next one was 400. So you're sitting there saying, wait, how can this be? Because that's not linear. How can your next life be in the year 400 when the life before that was in the year 500? Well, because maybe that's why we're viewing time through a linear lens.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not viewed to be that way. Maybe time is more of a location or a place as opposed to a straight line. So that's why even earlier when I was talking about that life in Roots, where I said, yeah, and I believe in a linear sense, that was my most recent life, but I don't believe that was necessarily my most recent life
Got it.
in
Yeah.
the location sense.
Okay.
Now, when you bring the musical correspondence into it, it's almost like working with flavor. So if first hit your C key, now we can even strip the numbers away if need be. You hit your C and then your E. Yes, on their own, they make a sound. But then if you add in the G, you're going to get a C chord. And that's going to create a particular flavor. And that is the way those lives may be working. By the way, I'm totally working off the cuff here. So I hope that this is
No,
making
it's cool because
sense.
I know you're a musician too. So I'm like, of course I mean, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go with the piano keys.
So there is a flavor that comes with those keys. They work together in tandem with each other, and it creates something that makes sense. And then if you add another key in there, there's going to be that additional flavor. So it's like on their own, they make a sound. But
Right.
when you put them together, they make a more full sound and a different sound and something that's more complete. So it's like you're drawing from all of them simultaneously if you allow yourself to. And that's not to say that you need to be a homicidal maniac if you're pulling from one of those lives, or the dictator, or the philosopher. But can you draw those best parts of those lives in at the same time and make it work in the here and now and actually draw from the experience?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where it comes from, because if you can, and that's also the one octave, if you can access all the other octaves, and my God, are you going to soar?
Right.
But sometimes I don't think you need to know the source of it, and you just need to feel it. And I don't believe that as humans we are meant to have access to all that simultaneously. I believe that some of those octaves are self-contained. And I think that also comes with the karmic component. where there may have been another octave that I was working with that I finished. So I don't need to address
Mm,
what was in those other octaves. I need to work within the octave that I'm in right now, which there are so many chords that could be made from that one octave and all
right.
those different notes. But maybe the totality isn't always fully present.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Is my piano new to anybody saying they've seen their lives with the piano keys? Have you ever heard that before?
I don't think I've heard that before. I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't. But doesn't it
yeah.
help? It really helped me. Like, it's like, gosh, that was so cool. Now I really can see it just by you saying it that way, and you understanding because you are musical, even better. But yeah, it just helps me see that each key is, there you're grabbing something from each one and making a song. Like,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's the story of your existence. That's your symphony.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, Daniel, that was so fun. And that probably went by faster than I'm one of the fastest hours that I've ever had. So that shows you that it was amazing and I really loved it. And I'm so grateful for our time a few weeks ago. And I know people are going to see the value in what you do and, like finding your purpose and what you're doing here in this lifetime. And definitely shifting other people's minds to grow, in their soul's journey, and to like you like how do I explain? You bring you're like this because I have you had you in my ear with my eyes closed. So when I've been listening to you, you speak into my soul, right? So I'm used to you like leading me along this journey.
Hmm.
And there's something about your voice. There's something about, I don't want to say like lightness, it's a comfort. I didn't feel, like, oh, he's going to judge me, like that feeling of like, I wasn't afraid to speak, but you just have a gift with that. And it's really a cool, experience to be free. It was like, I just explored and it was like you were like the best guide. So I really thank you for that. And
Well,
you've
thank
changed
you.
my life. You changed this bright moment. And it's
Oh,
so cool.
thank you. I mean that means a lot to me. And so like it's the that one of the things I'm working with still, like I mentioned before, how there's a part of me that makes it's very uncomfortable for me to hear that. And the part's like, yay. But that's all part of my process. And I think that you're here to serve as a mirror for me and vice versa. And we're here for each other's growth ultimately. But
Right.
I I appreciate all of that, and I hear you, but I just need to stress again, that was all you. I mean, yeah, I may be all those things, but you allowed yourself to go to those places and you decided what the takeaway was. And I I'm just the dude who may have the good voice and the good hair.
Yeah, well, you're a good
I'm
dude.
really proud of my hair. So I've brought that up a couple times today. I'm gonna be a mess if it ever goes away. Please don't take that one from me, God. I'll be good. I promise I'll be responsible. But everyone has the power within themselves. That's the thing, is someone may say that I'm a healer or whatever, but still I'm just the dude who asks questions. I just facilitate a space. And everyone has their own power and everyone has their own authority.
Hmm.
And I think at the same time, you came into my life at a time where I needed to be reminded that there are people like Ashley out there, that there are people who really are coming from this place of, I just want to help.
Hmm.
And that was very refreshing for me. So thank you for bringing that to me.
Oh, good. Well,
And just thank you for what you do. And I believe in you. And
thank you.
I think
I
you're here
believe
to
in
do
you.
great things and really help the world in only the way that Ashley can help it. So thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to speak with
Oh,
you in the audience. Just thank you.
thank you. Tell everyone where to find you. I know we kind of did a little bit ago, but do it again.
Oh, my shameless plug in the middle of a.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can find me through my website, thepastliferegressionist.com. I'm on Instagram at the Past Life Regressionist. My podcast is Timeless Spirituality, and my new Past Life Regression show is on New Reality TV, and it's called the Past Life Regressionist.
Oh, fun. How do I find that show?
Go
How do,
to newrealitytv.com,
oh, okay.
and
Oh,
I do past life regressions on there, and
oh, wow.
yeah, it's a cool gig.
Oh, fun. What's coming up? What do you have coming in the next year or two or five? What do you see yourself doing?
I I hope to, I mean, continue doing my podcast and the show and doing sessions, but I want to continue to expand out in the creative sense. I I'm also a writer, and my ultimate dream is to have my scripts become TV shows and
Oh,
to
wow.
introduce that to the world. I just recently wrote one about the concept of time that's I think is very accessible. I have another one I wrote about a past life regressionist and the stupid choices that he makes in life. Not me. There was some influence in there, but it wasn't me.
Oh,
Uh,
neat.
and I want to be able to reach the masses more and help them grasp these concepts in a way that's entertaining and where it could be planting the seed that
Mm-hmm.
they never knew that they needed.
Right.
And so that's where I'd ultimately
Yeah,
like to go. And
I
of
love
course,
it.
I'd love to continue just doing group regressions at retreats or at just name it. However it is that I can help connect people with the deeper part of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to do.
You
And
could
not
come down to San Diego and we could do a retreat.
I'm in.
Okay. You could do a group one?
Yeah,
Okay. Let's do it.
I'm in.
Yeah. Just coming from LA, that's a
Yeah.
easy do.
Not on a Friday, but
No, not on a Friday. But yes, let's plan on that.
I'm in.
Okay. That'd be so fun. I love it.
Thank you again for having me on though.
Oh,
This was
thank you.
this was a lot of fun.
Thank you. So fun. Thank you. Thank you.